Um, Welcome. Thanks for being here today. My name is Jeremy Cherney. I'm the president and owner and uh, honored to be the leader of Team Tobin at Tobin Solutions, where we provide IT services and cybersecurity managed services. And thankful for you all to be here today as I get to do one of my favorite things, which is talking and talking specifically about things that are IT, security, Microsoft 365, things like that. So thanks for being here today to be the audience for that. Um, we're going to talk today about artificial intelligence, and this is new material, and for me anyway, as far as putting together a webinar on this. And so I'll definitely be wanting your feedback in the end, just like the AIs out there. I also need feedback to improve and get better. So anything you see along the way, let me know. We're going to talk about some of the risks around AI, trying to get too much into the philosophy and politics and things beyond that. I'll throw my 2 cents in on a few areas, but there's a whole world of AI that we're not going to be covering here around that. We're going to talk about some of the opportunities, ways you can use AI, including what Microsoft is doing around that, because a lot of you are Microsoft 365 users, and you're using, as you'll find out, AI all over the place, all over your life probably. There's going to be some Q&A along the way if you want, so you can feel free to use the chat for that. Amanda is here as my co-host, and she may jump in and manage some of the chat or questions or anything like that. So hello, Amanda. Good morning. We have, let's see, what else do I want you to know? I don't know how long this one's going to go. We're booked out for an hour. I think it depends on how long we do in the demo, because we're gonna get into some hands-on with some of the technologies. And I guess depending how long that goes, we'll see. So might get you out of class early today. So first of all, what is artificial intelligence, right? We want to get kind of grounded in a background of what we're talking about in terms of this technology. And we want to make sure you understand it in plain language. That's our commitment. So artificial intelligence, it's the simulation of human intelligence by machines, typically what we think of as computer systems. And that can include all kinds of areas of intelligence. Things, what is it to be intelligent? There's a whole world of philosophy and psychology or neuroscience beyond all of that, and I'm not going to wade into all of that. But when you kind of think about intelligence, what makes us human, what makes us what we consider intelligent versus not, it's how we learn, how we reason, how we problem solve, our ability to perceive the world around us, and to talk, to use language and communicate and be able to do that. And there's just so much that's coming up around artificial intelligence now as it's really hitting kind of the mainstream in the last maybe 6 months or something like that. It seems like it's really entered the consciousness of many, and for a variety of reasons, including those that is often always the very first thing is, oh, the kids are going to cheat, right? So here's a natural intelligence, some kid that used ChatGPT to write up a synopsis of the 12th Night, but forgot to take out the very first line that said, "I'm sorry, I'm an AI language model." So I don't know which part is intelligent or not intelligent there. But we're going to find out as we go along the way that really what you consider intelligence is really what you're going to consider about artificial intelligence and the impact of it. Some people are saying, we have such a long way to go on this, and it's never going to it's not making a difference now. We don't have to worry about it right now. And there's others that are saying, wow, this is game changing now. We need to be using this in our business. We need to be using this in our life. So there's a whole view of that as you go through this, of what all that means for you. A little bit of a history of artificial intelligence. This is, while we're talking a lot about it now, and for some it seems like kind of a new thing or something, people with big brains have been working on this for more than half a century. So first of all, you had the big brains of like the sci-fi writers and things like that, people that sort of, and there's other people beyond that in the sci-fi writers, but at some point, the technology didn't exist that like it exists now. It was all conceptual. So, when people came up with uh, the Tin Man from the Wizard of Oz in the 1900s, that was a robot. That was an artificial intelligence. Wasn't complete. It didn't have a heart, but it was a robot. It was thinking. It was doing. It was helping. Right. So sci-fi writers and other creative people have been coming up with these ideas for a long time. There's movies and all kinds of things, and it definitely started hitting more as technology started advancing more in the 1900s, that people really started seeing more of this as a possibility in the future, of thinking about the future of technology and where it was going to take us as human beings. Um, Things started getting real in the 1950s with Alan Turing, who was a British mathematician and computer scientist. There was a movie about him where he helped break the Enigma machine, and that helped us win World War II. Um, and But he also kind of created this first concept of the idea of artificial intelligence. He wrote a paper about it, and he included this other thing that was something that was interesting that you hear about these days, and there's kind of different talk about the validity of it or what it looks like, but he created something called the Turing test. The Turing test is basically, if you are chatting with an artificial intelligence of some kind and talking to it, if you can't distinguish it from a robot from a human, then maybe it's artificial intelligence, but is it some other type of intelligence, some good enough intelligence, something indistinguishable from a human being, or something along those lines. So they came out with this thing called the Turing test. They've been thinking about this for a long time. There was a conference in Dartmouth in 1956 where they actually kind of coined the term artificial intelligence, and some of the big brains at the time that kind of created the study of artificial intelligence. And then things just kept progressing as they go. They started getting a lot of funding from the governments around this. They saw the value of this in different ways, in both helping humans and probably also in the world of defense and how do we use this. Some of the money that came from that came from our defense spending. But in the 80s, things started shifting a little bit. They started talking about expert systems and knowledge systems. Computers started getting better. That's a whole other part of this, right? So people have been thinking about this for a long time, but the state of technology to actually take these ideas and get them into a prototype, into something that actually works, to start testing and refining these things, it took a while for the technology to catch up. In some ways, we're still not there, but in some ways we are there, right? Because the technology seemingly is good enough in so many areas. So there was a lot of money being invested. The technology was getting better. Startups were in there, the dot-com era, all of that, machine learning, deep learning. You had IBM Watson winning Jeopardy. You had the chess program beat the greatest chess master of the day, Garry Kasparov. So you started hearing more of this all going on, and it just keeps progressing. And now it's, I think you're seeing kind of a new era of artificial intelligence, maybe where it's reached kind of the consumer market, the business market, the prosumer market, maybe, where you don't have to be a AI expert to be using this. And the cost and the price point is coming down to either being near free or very inexpensive for these kinds of things. So we're still on this history, and where this goes, I do not know, but we're on the move. There's a couple, when you think about artificial intelligence, there's a few broad categories. There's narrow AI, general AI, and super intelligent AI. Now, narrow AI, you are all using it all day long, right? If you used a GPS to get somewhere, if you used a voice-activated assistant today to check the weather or set a timer, if you did a Google search, like things like that are narrow AI. If you, it's artificial intelligence for a very specific purpose. It does one thing and it tries to do it as best it can, and we all know to greater effect it does it or doesn't it. But we use this narrow AI. And that's very popular. And like I said, that's integrated in everyone's daily life in so many ways. what gets more interesting for people, and where the bigger conversation starts to get up, is when you start getting to the general AI. That's where not just a specific thing like, hey, turn the lights on, or hey, what's the weather, or hey, recommend, movies I like based on this other movie that I like, but really getting into just asking it anything, having it learn and grow, and not just take what's there, but to actually adapt, kind of like how human beings do, right? As we learn and grow, we have our schooling, we have our, the relationships, we have all these things that we learn and grow, and we build on the knowledge of other people. And these AIs are, they're trying to get them to do the same thing and kind of work like a human does, because it's kind of the only intelligence we sort of know, right, is how we operate. And then there's a super intelligent AI. That's where it's not just like kind of working like us, but like is like way superior to us in its ability, and starts to be so incredible that it displaces much of what we do. Anything we consider economically valuable, that's one thing. You could think about the movie Wall-E, right, where the people were off living in the spaceship, while Earth was recovering, and the robots were doing everything, and all they did was sit and hang out and talk and whatever they did. But that's one possible world. Then you've got the the Terminator and Skynet and that kind of super intelligent AI. That's one of the scary parts of all of this. But there's a lot of problems we have as a human society that we have not solved yet, like how to live together in peace and harmony, maybe. There's miracle cures that we haven't discovered yet for diseases, and we got a lot of big problems we're facing. And maybe something with the super intelligent, maybe that's good to develop, because maybe it's going to help us do what we can't do on our own. But as soon as it doesn't open the pod bay doors, it gets really scary. So there's a kind of different levels of intelligence. One you're using all the time, this general AI, or we're going to do a demonstration later on ChatGPT. A lot of people for that's like considered like general AI, and what they're seeing in the kind of the magic of, or the appearance of magic around that. So those are kind of the broad categories, but you get into some of these techniques. So how do these things learn? Like, what does that mean when they're learning? What is it actually doing? Because they got to kind of, we don't necessarily understand how we as humans learn, right? They're still discovering what all that looks like, how our brain works, and how we take in information and store it and retrieve it and synthesize it. And they're learning a lot about that stuff, and we're getting better with it, but there's still a lot of it that is a big mystery. But somehow we're trying to get, computers to start to become artificially intelligent. And we're doing that through a few different models here. And there's other models and kind of subsets of these models, but machine learning is one that's really popular. That's where it's doing data analytics, looking at lots and lots of information, looking at lots and lots of patterns, and trying to synthesize it, trying to come up with ideas, things that it sees in the data, just like a human would in some ways. Humans look at data, and we look at spreadsheets and try and discover things. And this is machine learning, is programming a computer to try and do the exact same thing. And it does it, to some degree, and or another. When you think about going shopping on Amazon and you get that recommendation engine, that is based on a lot of machine learning. It's taking in buying patterns of you, buying patterns of others, recommendations. You've got spam filters, right? Spam filters are supposed to be using machine learning to get better and better. That's, part of when a spam filter says it's using artificial intelligence, it's using some form of machine learning to get better. And yet some of the spam still gets through, right? Is there anybody that didn't get spam in the last week or something, or day or hour? So it does it. It gets better, but it's not perfect. Doesn't mean we don't use it. Doesn't mean it's not valuable, but it's not perfect. You get into deep learning. That's where, it's kind of machine learning, but it starts to try and not just take the data and do some things with it, but really kind of analyze it, learn from it, be able to understand the data in a way that allows something that isn't possible with just a standard programming model. So you think of like Google Photos or other photo engines now these days. You can go in and say, show me a picture or show me a album of all my cats. And it'll go through all my photos and look through and find all the cat photos and put them all into an album for me. Or, we all have Google Maps, or, most of us are using that in our cars in one form or another, some kind of a GPS tracking. And some of us have cars that, have self-driving modes in there, right, to one form or another. There's kind of the basic self-driving stuff with like adaptive cruise control and all that. But now you've got self-driving cars tied to the Google Maps, right, to take you where you want to go and hopefully avoid killing you or other people along the way. And by and large, it does a really good job with that in some ways. There's some ways it's still really kind of far behind. But by and large, it does a really good job with that. It has a really good safety record in some ways. But for some reason, we're less tolerant of when the machine fails, right? If someone dies in a self-driving car, even though it's a far lower death rate than when we drive, it's still significant enough to, consider whether we want to incorporate this technology into our lives or how we incorporate this technology into our lives for a variety of reasons that we'll talk about in a bit. Another is the natural language processing. So that is, talking to these things, having it understand us as we understand each other and be able to act from it, to be able to answer from it, to respond from it, to query from it, to interact with, to collaborate with. I mean, it's amazing. Now, in some ways, you're seeing it again in limited. This is like natural language processing, NLP, with narrow AI. Kind of the confluence of those. You get like digital speakers. Hey, you wake it up with the wake word and you say, "What's the weather?" Set a timer. You get things to show up. Sometimes you go to a website and a little chat window starts up and says, "How can I help you?" Oftentimes it is not a person right away. It's somebody, who programs something, an AI, to take your query, your question, and attempt to answer it. Sometimes it can, sometimes it can't. Where I'll sit there, the other version of this is the voicemail, or the voice attendant when you call up someplace, right? And you're like press 1 for help, press 2 for this, and you're like, attendant, help, 1. And it's like, did you say banana? So it's not always great. And but it's getting better. It's getting better, and it's getting, again, good enough. While it can be frustrating, I got news for you. So can you all. People can be frustrating too. So I think, again, where people, one of the things when I hear people talk about AI and, where it's going to intersect with human beings and what we do and all that, there's a really low tolerance for what it is compared to how we operate. And, I think humans are great and smart and brilliant and flawed and loving and evil and all of that. And so you get, maybe I think I have a little more tolerance for how these AIs work, and they don't have to be perfect. They can be good enough, as you're going to find out, or maybe already have found out. This is another kind of thing that this isn't necessarily AI, but it gets into like the scary part of AI. So there are robots out there. We use robots in manufacturing all the time, and there's all kinds of robots that are out there that they're using in different ways to build our cars and flip our burgers and, serve up our candy bars. And you also get these robots that are really becoming very advanced. And if you, on your own time, go Google Boston Dynamics robots, you're going to see some amazing things that these robots can do. But they're not smart. I mean, they're smart about their own kind of situational awareness, like they can keep balance and not fall over as much and do flips. And there's some dance numbers out there that can be programmed to do and all that. But they don't have the artificial intelligence that we're talking about, like the general AI. They might start getting some of the narrow AI. You could imagine, you're seeing some of those robot dogs go out there and like help in like emergency rescue situations where it's listening, looking, sensing for things. But there's also like, a terrible episode of Black Mirror where they're killing people. So, where this goes, I don't know, but that's also kind of one of the considerations in AI, because as we talk about AI, we're going to show the chatting here at some point. We're going to be chatting with a robot dog. We will. I'm pretty convinced of it. We already are in some ways. So it's just a matter of time before how far it gets and what we do with it. There's another thing called deep fakes, which I don't know if you're seeing or not, but you can Google that on your own time. That's where people are using artificial intelligence, a form of narrow AI, narrow intelligence, to create pictures of people, to create voices of existing people, to create videos of existing people, but make it say something they never said. So, there's this funny one about this guy doing one with Tom Cruise. Admittedly, he maybe looks a little bit like Tom Cruise, so it's a little bit easier. But, he has Tom Cruise saying and doing all kinds of amazing things. And these are happening all over. And that's scary. And, if it's politicians saying it or doing it, people are pretty gullible about things, especially if you're being fed something you already kind of tend to believe. I don't know. There's a whole world of where all that's going and kind of the cynicism of where AI is, but that's happening now. These things are happening and it may be useful, right? It may be useful. You may create a character from nothing, and we're going to talk a little bit about that, that you want it to say things and you want it to look like, you want to be able to feed it dialogue, but you don't want to hire an actor, and you could potentially create a deep fake or something. You could use AI to create a Tom Cruise looking like character who sounds a bit like Tom Cruise, who then says and talks about how great your business is. I mean, it's a possibility. People do it all the time in the real world. This would just be doing it with AI. So there are lots of concerns about AI, and I'm going to touch on some of these just because it's all part of the conversation when it always seems to come up with AI. And some of the concerns you may have. Excuse me one sec. Sorry about that. Frog in my throat or something. So what are some concerns about AI? Privacy and intellectual property are two big ones. So AIs, let's just map it onto ourselves first, right? You grew up, you got some kind of learning and development from your parents or whoever raised you, and however you got raised, and the teachers you had, and the books you read, and the movies you watched, and you learned things, and you went to school for things, and you took other people's knowledge that other people gleaned, and you incorporated into now your knowledge, and maybe you created some things new, or maybe you use that knowledge in predictable ways or new ways or whatever all that is. But there's a lot of information that's on there. And if you're working with a client or something like that, or you've got your own data, you've got, your own experiences. So if we're going to use these new AIs, they have to kind of go through the same process. If they're going to have knowledge about humans and technologies human use and things that humans need, they're going to have to learn about humans. They're going to have to suck in huge amounts of data, all the books you read, all the lectures you saw, all the theories you were taught and learned, even your own writings, if you were somebody who created some new things and put them out there on the web, and it's going to suck it all in. And it's got to learn, right? And if you're using the AI for something like, when I say use, you're kind of using it, or maybe it's, it's using you, like you look at something like Facebook, right? The Facebook algorithm, the stuff that feeds you things in Facebook of what it thinks you want to see and watch and read and follow and friend and all of that. It's using an AI, a very narrow AI, to do that, but it's all doing it based on your personal data. So you're giving all your data to this narrow AI to go make recommendations for you to whatever effect that is. So there's a lot of concerns around that. There's, hey, it grabbed information from the web. It took public information. It took copyrighted information. It took personal information. All of that is a concern. As you're going to see, if a business wants to use AI, what does it need? It needs your business data. For the AI to work effectively for you, you need to feed it your business data, some level. So what is that AI going to do with that business data that you give it? Is it protected? Is it get somehow reused, sanitized? What do the terms of service say about it? There's a lot to consider. So this is where you want to get into talking to your attorneys. You want to talk to your trade associations to see what they might be doing or talking about how this gets used in your business. Job displacement. So this is a concern. People's jobs are already and have been replaced with AI for years, right? You know, US has never been bigger in manufacturing, and yet there's a far less people working in manufacturing due to automation. With robots, which in part is narrow AI, because it can do it faster and better, and it doesn't call in sick. So, and there's a lot of jobs now that it used to be like, okay, well, those kinds of jobs are going away, but not me. I'm a smart knowledge worker. I'm a creative type. Well, I'm going to show you some ways where you could consider those jobs are maybe going away or at least altering in the future. There are concerns about bias and fairness, right? An AI is trained by who? Humans in some way. And if there's a bias, either intentional or unintentional, it's going to show up in the results. There are examples where these AIs are producing information that by many standards is offensive, is racist, is every ist you can think of. So why that's happening, I don't know. Sometimes it's unexpected, but you got to think that's part of it. And what does that mean? There is security. People are using AI to conduct cyber attacks. There was a story of someone using an AI to write a novel virus that had not been was not initially detectable by any of the modern antivirus systems out there. Plus just using AI to conduct attacks in one form or another, whether it's an attack to do something funky, some kind of geeky cyber attack, or whether it's to scrape your private data from Facebook and then use that to phish you or something like that. They're already using technologies to do that. It's only going to get better. How is the technologies working here? That's another thing. The AIs, if it, we don't know how they call it the black box problem. Companies consider some of their AI as trade secret. They don't want to tell you how the sausage is made. So you've got that. Accountability. Who's responsible for these AI systems, and is our legal system ready? There's a whole conversation about that, right? If a car that's using AI to drive itself somewhere crashes and kills someone, who's responsible? You? The car maker? The AI maker? I don't know. There's a lot of questions that are going through, and people are trying to figure this out. And if the AI goes and swipes intellectual property, if it rips off a song in some way and produces a new song, because AIs can write songs now. I don't know if you knew that. And if it sounds enough like another song, who's responsible for those kinds of claims? There's a whole world of social impact, society's norms and values. I don't know, what all that means. Initially, kids using this to do homework with and what that looks like. The relative value of data and knowledge. I don't know. There's a whole bunch of social psychologists and all those kind of people working on stuff like that. Therein is the existential, right? The end of humanity. Is this the beginning of the end? I have no idea. I mean, it's certainly possible if we decide to hook up AIs into, our defense systems and things like that, like a Skynet and something. Could that happen? Yeah, it's possible, especially if we, make them like us, if we build in hatred and resentment and some of our less endearing qualities as human beings. I don't know what'll happen with all that. It's possible. It could be an accident. It could just be we put an AI in charge of something, to, I don't know, control a nuclear power plant or something like that, and it messed up. So, I don't know what all that looks like, and that is a concern though. But we have that existential concern on many ways beyond AIs. Let's see here. So what's ChatGPT? This is one that is very popular. This is kind of the one that hit the news a lot lately, and for a lot of you put artificial intelligence on the map. GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. It's an AI language model that uses deep learning. It's trained on a vast data set of text from the internet, and it's learning the patterns of how we speak. It does this deep neural network to try and understand the context of what you're talking to it about. And I'm going to give you a demo here of that in a minute. It tries to look for what's relevant, and it tries to respond with what it thinks probabilistically is what you're looking for in a response. And that's a really bad example. I'm not even explaining it very well, but it's basically, the way I look at it is that humans are very predictable in our speech and in our ideas and in our flow. It's pretty rare that we're not parroting something else that somebody said or did. Maybe we're not intentionally doing it, but we learn things from we recite things we learn from others, right? That's part of what makes us smart. We can grab information. So, and there are kind of a cadence to how we speak in some ways. And which the way I see ChatGPT is it tries to understand what you're doing, and it just starts to spit out words that probabilistically make sense in relation to what you asked it, like a lot of humans do. Sometimes it's very engaging to listen to somebody to do that, and sometimes it can be downright frustrating, right? We've all been with people that are speaking about something, they don't know what they're talking about. They don't, you've heard this before, all that kind of a thing. I don't know. For me, it's no different. And then you can refine it though. Just like a person, you can ask it to, hey, can you clarify that? Can you try this? Can you do that? And we're going to take a look at that. And it's smart. The ChatGPT passed the law exam, passed the medical licensing exam, can beat most all of you on the SAT, but it also had a creepy encounter with a journalist that left them unable to sleep. So it's smart, but it can be weird. So you got to take all that into account, like as you're using it, like, because these things are not perfect. Neither are we, but we seem to have a way of dealing with one another when we're not perfect, either questioning or being able to discount certain things or to bracket certain things. And you can do the same thing with ChatGPT when you're careful with it, but you got to look at it just like anything else. You don't want to take everything everybody says at face value, right? You kind of dig in, you analyze, and you want to do the same thing with whatever you get out of the AI. I'm going to go and do a quick demo on the ChatGPT. Let's take a look at that, I think. So I'm going to change my share here. Okay. So ChatGPT is by a company called OpenAI. And this is it. It's a website you go to and you sign up for it. It's a free service. You can also do a paid service, and the paid service allows you to use the more current model rather than the 3.5 model. You can use the GPT-4 model. And you can get in and start chatting with it here. But before we do that, I would like to you know what? I think I got something out of order here. I'm going to go back a slide. Sorry, one sec. Sharing. Let's go back to this. Okay. I do want to cover a couple more things, and then I'm going to get into the demo. So hang tight on that. Sorry for the teaser there. Um, I want to talk about how this relates to Microsoft because a lot of you are Microsoft 365 users, and Microsoft is half owner, I think, or maybe 49 or 51% or something owner of the company that owns ChatGPT that we'll be showing here in a bit. So Microsoft is immediately, they've been working on artificial intelligence for a long time. I don't know, you've been in computer users for the last 20, 30 years. Microsoft Bob, anyone remember Microsoft Bob with the cute little dog that was coming in to try and help you use your computer better? And then you had Microsoft Clippy, the little digital assistant. I mean, that's AI. It might have been kind of weird and sort of cute, sort of creepy. I don't know, however you look at it, but it was trying to help you. Hey, it looks like you're writing a letter. Can I help you with that? So it's trying to work with you here. They came out with Cortana, which is their digital voice assistant, which was trying to compete against Amazon and Google's Home. And I think they got it baked into technology differently right now. I don't think their voice is working too often, but I'll bet they're going to integrate it now with ChatGPT, I bet. They took their ChatGPT and immediately added it to Bing, their search engine, to try and give Bing new life. And we'll look at Bing here in a little bit. And then they have a new product that they're coming out with called Microsoft Copilot. And that is in limited preview right now. And let's take a look at what that looks like. I don't even have access to it to give you a demo of it here. So I'm just going to show you the video of what Microsoft says. They said they're testing it with a couple dozen companies right now, and pieces of it are going to start rolling out over the next few months. So this is Microsoft Copilot. Wow. So I don't know how much of that is marketing hype versus reality. It's not going to look quite as cool and stylized, I don't think, with all that. That definitely looks very futuristic, like someone's wearing like heads up virtual reality goggles or something and working with their data. But I think in concept, how a lot of that's going to work, you're going to see already kind of works pretty well. How it really integrates and all that, the initial reviews are that it's working very well and does a lot of interesting things for you. How it does that is through what's called the Microsoft Copilot system. So Microsoft Copilot, which they have not announced the pricing or the licensing for that yet, because it's, I'm sure they're going to include some level of that with, different Microsoft 365 subscriptions, and then you'll probably be able to pay more to get different features. But it's going to go right inside your Microsoft 365 apps, just like Clippy used to. It's going to pop up and say, hey, you want to write a memo here? I mean, you saw what it was doing. It was doing all that from inside Word and PowerPoint and Excel and Outlook. And then what it does is it feeds it into your Microsoft Graph. If you've been to any of our Microsoft 365 Hidden Gems presentations, we talk about Microsoft Graph. This is an example of that. It's taking all the knowledge of your data, all your files, all your security, all your emails and everything, and feeding it, giving it access to that, and then sending it over into their large language model, into their version of, Chat GPT, and then says, okay, go take my request, go take my data, now go return something, and then bring it back, run it through the graph again, just to make sure it's not doing anything weird or creepy or illegal or, violating a security policy, and then drop it into my app for me. So that's coming. And I think it's going to be something that is you're going to see is pretty useful. And I'm using it quite a bit now, ChatGPT, for some of those features, and show you how you can use that here. So this is what I was talking before about. So I want to get to this slide before I did the ChatGPT demo, because it's kind of based on this. I want you to understand something about the state of AI right now, as best I can explain it. Is this is the worst it's ever going to be in terms of how good it is. And it's really good in a lot of ways. It's only going to get better from here. It's only going to get better in terms of how people access it, how they use it, the results that come forward, they'll become more reliable. And it's only going to get better from here. It's only going to expand in where it get used. There's just so much money flowing into AI right now, and people using the AI for so many different things. And I think that, again, it's not perfect. It makes mistakes. Sometimes it just says downright bizarre things, but so do I. So do you, right? And doesn't prevent us from working with one another or hiring one another, or seeing how that looks. So how far you take it really depends. Just like anything, you want to kind of vet its use and make sure what it's spitting out is accurate and useful. But I see it transforming the workplace. I see it as a virtual intern or brainstormer or assistant, creative content, things that we thought were unheard of from a human being, or from things that are totally heard of from a human being and unheard of from a computer, or at least not really doing a good job of it. It now does a passable job, again, depending on the use case, right? If you're writing a memo to a client that's meant to be kind of a generic memo, you might use it for that, and it might be totally sufficient. If you're trying to write a love letter to your Valentine, maybe you could use it for that. Maybe it's not going to be quite the same emotional response, but again, it might be good enough to get a start. I'm going to show you a lot of different ways this can be used, and how you end up using it in the real world or in your work really depends. But like I said, it's being integrated everywhere. I mean, every system. It's now the buzzword too, AI marketing buzzword. Every business, Microsoft, Google, Apple, everyone's talking about what they're doing around AI, how they're investing in AI, how they're integrating AI into their product suite. So it's going to become ubiquitous in a way that in this form of this chat, in this form of this interaction you can have within it, that it's taking on a whole new level. So let's go do some examples of some of these good enough uses here. Let me share the screen. Let me bring up. Let's take a poll. What are your favorite sitcoms from back in the day? I just rewatched all of Frasier. It was hilarious. All right, 70% of you, 69% of you have chimed in. A few more. You want to get your preferences known here. Let's see who wins right now. Who's winning? Seinfeld's winning. And you want to try and tip the scale? A lot of office people. All right, so here we got our results here. Oh, Cheers took over at the last second, I think. 42% of you think Cheers is where it's at. So, okay, so why do I say that? So let's look at what we might use Chat GPT for. So I think there was a writer strike. I don't know if that's still going on in Hollywood right now. So I could say, write an, no, create a new episode of Seinfeld. Spelling that right? SCI. And give a brief, oops, description in a script for the opening scene. So this is it being creative. Interesting. Kind of a weird episode. Writing dialogue. I can almost hear the characters speaking, can't you? You hear George, pigeon drones. It's like a sci-fi movie out there. So is that a great episode of Seinfeld? I have no idea. Could that be the start of some ideas about another episode of Seinfeld? Maybe. Is if Chat GPT doing this, is that amazing? Kind of. You know, if this was a writer in Hollywood, you might be thinking, oh, they're going to get a job or not get a job on something like this. Is this a good thing or not? If this was like a 4-year-old, if this were your 4-year-old and said, my 4-year-old can create and write episodes of Seinfeld, you would think this is a genius. This is a genius 4-year-old. So there can be creative uses for it. What about brainstorming things? I'd like to start a camping store. Give me 10 ideas for a cute name. I have no idea if any of these are names that are already in use. But really, you know, you think about when you're talking to somebody in a creative capacity, or really any capacity, and this is kind of where I think, you know, where do jobs maybe start to disappear or alter, right? This might be the kind of thing you might have given to an intern, or to a junior, or to a new grad. Hey, go come up with 10 names and come back, brainstorm some ideas and bring them back to me and we'll discuss. I mean, I don't, you know, could be something like that. So, um, you know, you can use it for camping, and I can refine it. So this is why they call it the chat. So here are some catchy camping names. I say, okay, now here's what you could be like. I could say thank you if I want to say thank you to the Chat GPT, but you don't need to say thank you. And I could say focus on some that deal with animals. And it was smart enough to understand that I'm still talking about those names. I didn't have to restate the whole request. So you can chat with it. That's why they call it a chat GPT. I can go back and forth. I can give it more clues. I can brainstorm. I can have it refine things. I could say, you know, go outside the box on this. Let's see what it comes up with. Hopefully something that's safe for work here. I mean, it understood when I say go outside the box on this. And are these outside the box? Yeah, they would be outside the box. But, you know, again, is your answer in there? Maybe. Do I want to start up Gopher's Gear House or something like that? Maybe. Is it a good brainstorming thing? Maybe. So, then there's other ways you can use that technology. So let's say there was one up I saw before here, Starry Night Supply, that I liked. So there's another thing you see where the AI is showing up, and that's another creative things in digital creation of, you know, artistic endeavors in this way. These are people, this is Dolly, and there's a number of these out there. And someone said, give me an armchair in the shape of an avocado, and it created that painting. Someone said an oil painting by Matisse on a humanoid robot playing chess. So I could say camping in the style, style of Starry Night, because that was my camping idea. Let's see what it comes up with here. Oh, and sometimes the server is overloaded and it can't do what you want it to do. Let's see. Thinking, it's thinking, it's thinking. Look at that. Now, again, is this what you would want on your web page? One of these images? Maybe. Is it enough for a proof of concept conversation or a prototype? Or again, what an intern might do? Hey, can you go come up with 10 different drawings of camping under a starry night or in the style of Starry Night? I guess it got the Starry Night. It didn't really get the kind of the Van Gogh Starry Night. I could probably regenerate that and say, let's go Starry Night. Let's see. And it's busy. All right, one more time. Only got a few minutes left here. I want to give a couple more demos. Not bad, a little better. So again, depending on what your use case is that a good enough use to generate some ideas or to do some brainstorming for yourself or for a project you're working on? It can summarize things. Summarize U.S. Constitution. Wait, I'm going to say summarize the U.S. Constitution in 250 words or less. I'm not a constitutional scholar, whether everything in there is right or wrong or whatever. Is that the best thing? It looks like way more than 250 words. But you can feed it your own content. You could take your employee handbook, and this is where you get into good enough uses. You could potentially, if you had the right AI, you could feed your employee handbook or some of your processes into an AI and give it to your team to use. So, and that becomes, again, something useful, but also a concern because what information is going to be in there? Other ways that this can be here, write some HTML code that will display a haiku about Batman. So here it is writing some computer code. With a little creative bit on here. It even gives some background information. This is where a part where I think things are going to get impacted, because I'm going to copy the code here and I'm going to go into here and paste the code in. Let's see what if I run it. Does it run? Look, there it is. There's my Batman haiku. So, it can write code. So this is again where I think like interns, we all grew up through like the intern system and people training us and things like that. And I don't know what's going to happen when people start to use this instead of interns, because I don't know how that's going to work. But, some people are going to need to use this, right? If you're a startup person and you're trying to get a business going and you're all on your own, artificial intelligence like this is kind of a godsend for you, right? You got your own marketing department, you got this and that, I can go back here. I could say, going back to the camping idea, write a 200-word blog post about a new Starry Night camping store. I didn't tell it much about tents or anything like that. And again, you could give it more information and, keep, just like you would working with an intern or someone else on your team to get to a final result, you can keep going back to ChatGPT. Okay. Let's see. And like I said, Microsoft is now incorporating this into Bing. So if you have the new Microsoft Edge and you have this Bing button up here, they really made this nice and present for you. If you go to bing.com and go to chat and it brings up a version of ChatGPT that's kind of Bing style. It says, what do you want to do? Ask questions, get better answers, get inspired. You're going to be more creative, more balanced, more precise. You're kind of putting your own bias into the results. I could go down here and it says, what do I want to do? I want to rewrite some text. You can feed it some text and have it summarize it for you. So there's just so many things you can do with it. You can brainstorm other ideas. It's up to your own limitations of what you want to see and do and how you use it. But you're going to start seeing this showing up more and more and more. And I don't know if it's going to pass the Turing test for some of you. It might. For some of you, it might be good enough. Might be good enough for clients where you can at least get their initial question answered with AI or something. So let me see if I've got anything else on that I want to show you here as we wrap up. No, I think that hopefully that gives you a sense of what this is. Back to my roadshow here. And yeah, we kind of gave you an example of some of these, right? Where they could be used as a brainstormer, as an assistant, as an expert. I mean, all of these things, it's and there's ways they're opening up that ChatGPT where it can be expanded with other tools to use its technology with other technology that people haven't even started to discover yet. And it's a gold rush in some ways too. I mean, there's just this is a whole new industry and it's going to create some jobs for sure. I think it's going to take some jobs for sure. And what the long term is, I don't know. I'm not optimistic about it in those regards, but who knows? Maybe it'll help us with the next cure for cancer and that'll be worth it all. We will find out. But anyway, that is kind of the end of the presentation here, right on 10 o'clock. I thought this would go short. We actually are now long here if anyone wants to stick around for any questions or anything like that. I will be available. Let me look at the, I don't think I used all my polls here. Anything else in the chat that I didn't get to? Any questions? Otherwise, I'll have to stick around. Otherwise, thank you all very much. If you got any questions about how this works or how it can integrate with Microsoft 365 or any of your other solutions you're working on, let us know. We're happy to help you out. Also, again, new content on here, so looking for any feedback and on how this went. Other content, other topics we could, or areas I didn't cover, or other areas I could cover more deeply, or other things, would love to hear it. And you're all very welcome. Let's see. Yeah, someone's giving some pro tips, William, on copying and pasting. Yeah, if you're going to copy and paste the results, you can just copy and paste it as plain text. You don't have to copy the gray in there and all of that. Just like anything else, like when people are copying out of the Google results or some other document they found on the web, it's same thing. You want to change your formatting to match your document. Yeah, that's right, Michael. We could report to AI one day. I think that is not, in some ways, maybe we do, because it's telling me what to watch on Facebook every morning. So yeah, I'll try and be a friendly partner in AI. We'll see where it goes. I think it's gonna be more on how we use it.